everyone. Welcome to this extra snappy edition of Painters Motivating Painters. I only got 3 submissions this month, but they're all absolutely beautiful. You'll get a bit of extra time on account of that. Normally, we joke that no matter how many submissions there are, we'll just take like an hour or an hour and a half. I don't think we'll manage this time. I think we'll get squeak under the hour, I'd say, at least.
Mindless rambling.
But yeah, in case you're just a random person, by the way, Painters Motivating Painters is a Facebook group where you can submit your work and people give each other feedback. And then once a month, we have these video reviews. So welcome aboard. First up, we've got Zach Harris. He's doing this bust of some sort of fey woman. Did it for a competition, but didn't get any feedback. Okay, cool. I hope you did get on well with the competition. And also, main thing about competitions is it's a great opportunity to push yourself and kind of get out there and work on your style and meet people and all that other stuff. So winning, not very important. It's a lovely looking bust, and it's gonna stand to you to have it on your shelf, and then the experience of painting it will also stand to you. So first of all, I really like the kind of nature theme you've got going on here. All the colors work very well together. You've got kind of contrasting purple and green, but because everything's kind of pastel a little bit, it actually works very harmoniously together. I think like the green hair looks really, really nice with the dress, just like in terms of composition, because it's kind of framing everything, and even the green eyebrows. Like it's just overall a very pleasant kind of scheme to look at. Mentioned the hair looks really, really good. I love the way you've got that kind of sheen, and it goes from a less saturated green up into like a more vibrant green, and then it's got that glossy point in a few places. And the flowers also look fairly natural. Like it looks like, I don't know what kind of flower these actually are, but you convinced me that these would be some kind of real world flower. In terms of stuff you might want to improve on, so the NMM on the collar, see, you've got this really nice style where it's quite kind of cartoony. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like World of Warcraft or something. And it's nearly there with the collar. Like it doesn't have to be super realistic looking gold. But I think you just want to have like go down, just shade it down a little bit more, and then maybe have a secondary light. You could work in some of the green like on the sides, just because at the moment it's just not quite as shiny as we'd like it to be. Basically. And then the freckles I thought are a nice addition to the piece, but they're very large and kind of regularly spaced out, especially across her like shoulder and torso. They look more like less like freckles and more like she's got the kind of pattern on her skin. So I wasn't sure which one it was meant to be. And like she's got freckles, like obviously they're placed in places you get freckles, like on your shoulders and in your cheeks and that kind of thing. But they wouldn't be like distributed like just one. They're clustered together in one area and they get like fainter as you move out. Is what I would do, and generally, yeah, get like have big ones in the area that has the most of them, and then they get smaller and sparser as you move away from that area. You also get they're not like it's not like a gradient. Like I have like freckles here and then just like none there because the light hits you on top of your shoulder, but then here it's like perpendicular to it most of the time. So you can just drop off fairly suddenly for different parts. Like for example, like if for the forearm or upper arm relative to the shoulder, that kind of thing. Also skin, I think it's a nice skin tone. It's like a good kind of just like natural kind of looking skin, but it's somewhat kind of the same everywhere. So like I think the hand could have a bit more like, red in the knuckles and that kind of thing. And then you could have a bit more highlight on the face relative to everywhere else. And you've got a little bit around the neck. The shadows are a little bit like stark. No, they're not stark. Like they're fairly soft shadows, but she's got such smooth skin and the lighting is generally so kind of soft that I wouldn't expect to see these dark lines like around here and around like her Adam's apple that she just shouldn't actually have. And then you don't actually really get shadows like behind your collarbone here because the light comes down that way unless you're being lit like really from the front or from below. So that should be like it can be very slightly darker because it is a depression, But if you just like glaze back over with your mid-tone skin tone over that, it'll just eliminate those kind of like deep looking crevices, and it'll just look more like, you know, they're little like divots in the flesh. And then last point for me was I liked the cross hatching kind of texture that you did on her like purple arm ribbony. It's a bolero, I think is what that type of
Oh,
clothing is called. But
impressive.
don't ask me why I know that. Jim?
Oh, sorry, you're done. Yes,
Yeah.
this is very nice. Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get feedback really because you know it'd be nice to point our feedback in a certain direction, but being as you haven't asked for anything in specific, I think Matt's covered the skin really nicely. I agree with what he says. You've got some lovely hues going on in the shadows. I think we could just like to see a bit more of that in the mid tone as well, because once it gets to its like highest, brightest point, it's just kind of an awful lot of the skin is at the highest point of highlight, so you kind of lose the contrast that way because if you've highlighted everything, then effectively you've highlighted nothing. So yeah, I usually sort of say, oh, push the highlights, but I think in this case, the high of the skin goes high enough, and it's actually gone too far into the mid tone. So I'd actually get some more mid tone in it and push the contrast of the skin that way. I think that would be really helpful. Great point, Matt's, about a secondary reflection in the necklace. I also think that the shadow around the necklace is really heavy, and I don't think it needs to be that heavy. If there's anything you can do to soften that, especially the top one, which is like twice as thick as the bottom one. I mean, it's great that you've got the separation there between those two elements, but I do think it's a bit heavy on this occasion. Um, Next point for me, I noticed was in the wood of her staff branch thing. So I love the reflection that you've got from the lamp. I think you've totally nailed that. That looks great. The snake one, not quite so much because the source light is not really that much brighter than the cast light. So I think if you can either brighten the source of the light from the eye or tone down the that's to say make a bit of a darker shade the actual cast light itself, especially like towards the edge of where that light is. That would really help to make that spot sort of pop out a little bit more. um, I like the tones that you've used in the wood, but I think you could pick out a few more edges a bit more deliberately, because you've kind of got two tones to the wood, whereas you've got, like, when you look at the hair or the flowers or the gold, you've got much more than two colors going on. So if you could take that a little bit higher in some of the highlights, that'd be cool, and just like fine detailed brush to like do very fine lines, both darker and lighter. That is a good way to get some texture into the wood. Um, then I noticed, it took me a while to notice actually. I think it would have popped out a lot easier if you'd had a bit more of a blank background for the photos. But eventually I did notice that she's actually got this like withered black hand on the other side, which is really cool thing. I didn't notice it, like, so much going on at the top. Nice things to look at. Didn't really notice this. So I think that looks really cool. Although I feel like in the shadow of the fabric, that's a really good opportunity to have a little bit more OSL going under there. It's green on green, which is always tough, but it's a completely different flavor of green. You've got this like fluorescent green going on with this very desaturated pastel green. So I think you could pull it off. I think you could get away with it. And then also, while you're there, just like trying to soften some of the edges of this glow against the black, because it feels a little bit stark in places. So just anything you can do to smooth that out on the black would be really handy. But on the whole, it's a really nice, like really nicely put together piece. The textures that are in the fabric really sell as well, and as Matt said, compositionally it's really ace. So yeah, great work overall, Zach. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And then moving up, we've got Daniel, who's tried his hand at Necron's. Aim was to create a rusty NMM, and as always, some kind of in-your-face brighter elements. Still trying to get the head around color theory and what works, but happy with how it turned out. Otherwise, yeah, it does look really cool. I like this. Try and make this big. There we go. Yeah, I really like the scheme. Classic, like tri-color combination going on here between sort of the orangey tones and the purple and the green. I think you've balanced it quite nicely. So with the rusty though, it doesn't really scream rusty armor to me. It looks more like it's kind of been lacquered in that kind of ochre orange tone. Doesn't really sell as rusty to me. If you want it to go all out like 100% rust, then my best piece of advice for you is a complete cheat code, and it's buy a product called Dirty Down Rust and just paint it with that, and it will look better than you could ever get it to look just with acrylic paints and all the time in the world. It is an absolute cheat code. It really is a hack. Takes a bit of getting used to learn. If you, I'm assuming that you haven't got it, but if you haven't got it, takes a bit of getting used to. Don't get water anywhere near it when you're applying it. But you just basically whap it on there, happy as Larry, dries in seconds, and then you actually go in with a wet brush just with water, and you actually remove some of it, not all of it. Just go in there gently and just start rubbing away at it. It doesn't interact at all with acrylic paints. You don't need to varnish or anything first, but that's if you want a super rusted up look. If you wanted something a bit more subtle, then you've got to have some of the the normal metal showing as well, right? So edges. It kind of works best, Russ, when you've got like silver. Take like the silver arm piece here, and it'd be like falling away into the shadow at the bottom, right? So the top would be like nicely highlighted and shiny, and then just before it gets into the deep shadow, then you'd start introducing like the brown into like the mid-tone before it meets the shadow. That gives you like the illusion of rust, and then you can sort of go in with some sponging or stippling of something of some oranges, reds, yellows to make it look sort of fresher than the old brown rust. So yeah, but I still don't think this has failed as a piece. As I just don't think it looks like rusty armor on its own. But I still think it looks cool. With the NMM of the weapon, I think you've got cool colors going on there. Good contrast, good tones. It definitely sells as gold. I probably would just say though, be mindful of using like very uniformed reflections. They're all sort of pretty much the same size, and they're spaced very, very evenly. So light behaves a lot more sort of randomly than that. And although it could reflect like that, it sells better on a miniature if you make it a bit more random. It makes it easier for the eye to read, because it's nice to have a big reflection and then some smaller ones that are less intense, but you sort of go from highest highlight, lowest shadow, highest highlight, lowest shadow every single time, smoothly across the whole piece. So it just kind of, it looks a little bit forced, if I'm honest. But yeah, just randomizing it a little bit. I mean, the easy thing to do is just be to combine those two highlights there and just make that one big highlight, and then you've got the smaller secondary ones as you move away. Simple done. The purple looks really cool. Can't really fault that. I like how you've got the light reflections in the really dark shadows. Where's a good example? Like in the claw here, where you've got these bright reflections here. Just a sharper tip would be the only improvement there, to be honest. I think you've nailed the color gamut on that. It looks really cool. And then final point I think I had was for the base. Yeah, so the snow. It can't. I mean, Matt's really the pro on snow. Matt's done a lot of snow, and it looks awesome. But I feel like it would be cool if we broke up some of this large dark area that's right in front of him with some like smaller areas of snow, because we get that it's been a while since it snowed and it's kind of thawing out. So you'd still expect to see some of the snow like in the tufts and like around, just generally around in the gravel sort of thing. Maybe a little bit in this the crevice where this rock meets the ground, because you've got these three big massive lumps of snow on there, and it's not feeling terribly cohesive with the rest of the base. So yeah, just a little bit more of that I think would be really helpful. But on the really cool scheme for it overall. I'm about to start doing some Necrons as well, so you've given me some nice ideas to steal. Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much, Dan. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, it's really cool. think on the snow, the biggest issue is that it's way too white. It looks kind of like toothpaste or like icing or something like that. Because obviously, like actual snow, it's kind of see through, so like the light like filters into it, and it tends to be very blue in the shadows and like yellow in the highlights. So yeah, you could basically use some washes to like make it less, and like around the edges it should be brown because like you'll see through like the melted really thin layer of it, and it'll be like brown there. But yeah, Jim's right as well. Not it stops really abruptly. Like you should have little like mostly melted puddles of it like showing up in some places as well. Uh, for me, best way to do snow I find is using like crushed glass and then you use like either water effect or like some sort of gel medium to like hold it together, and it has that kind of crystalline element and the kind of liquidiness, and you can vary them up to get it to be more or less melted. And then the you can like use oil washes to like actually run in between the little crystals of the glass to give you that kind of feeling like there's light passing through and then reflecting back off something. Um, and then you can use the like snow effect to make it a bit more white. But the thing is, what snow is see through. It's just that it's like got a like a halo. It's refracting the light back at you. So that's why it looks white, but it also takes on all the colors of everything that's around it. Um, on the color scheme, I think you're so you're talking about like the color theory of it. I think it looks really cool. It's like very, very striking. And you picked like the really classic villain thing where you have purple, green, and yellow because they're like the three most opposite each other colors you can get. But the armor is like kind of orange, which for me it's very close to the yellow. Like I think it works because it's so desaturated, but like if you were trying to like work on your color theory kind of thing, I think maybe it should either be orange, green, purple, orange, or green, purple, yellow, because you kind of got like green is here, purple's here, yellow's here, and then orange is like really close to the yellow, and you're like, well, why isn't there like the partner colors for those? And for a random example, the Marvel villain Green Goblin is purple, green, and yellow, and Hobgoblin is purple, green, and orange because they don't do all four of them together because it gets a bit messed up. I think the blue eye works because it's like so singular and it's like right in the middle, and it's very small, so you get away with it. And like I said, I think the yellow, I think the scheme works, but like in terms of like color theory, it's like asymmetrical, if that makes sense, because you've got two warm tones and then two cold tones, but the cold tones are like really far apart from each other. Um, and yeah, I agree with Jim that the armor it doesn't look rusted. It looks I thought it was like ceramic, like you know the way they do like the sci-fi armors where it's like not metal, it's meant to be some sort of like hardened plastic or like ceramic material or something. I think it looks really cool. Like I love how weathered it is. It does like contrast an awful lot with the weapon though. In that the weapon looks like perfect, and you know you've got very very stylized like light reflections on it, and you're like, why is it so super shiny? But I think it doesn't really matter. Like rule of cool says it looks cool, so I'm fine with that. And like you know the way you have those really exaggerated reflections on like the claw and everything, you know it really screams like I'm a villain from a cartoon like from 1991, and I think that's a great look, and I really really like it. Just on the color theory again, there's like on the base you've got like one orange, like some orange rods sticking up out of it. I'm kind of wondering why did you pick that like color to put there? It's a cool color, but again, like you know, for basing, like it doesn't really matter. But if you were doing like a diorama or something like that, you'd want there to be a reason why this rebar down here is orange and the rocks are blue. Um, probably to like tie it in to other elements or to balance some other stuff out. So yeah, just have a bit of a think about that. Like what you're doing here is like a tetradic. Well, technically you got five colors, but I think the blue doesn't really count because it's minor enough. Um, and yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the scheme works. That's it. Because the whole thing with color theory is it's like you know, there's all these rules, but you don't actually obey them most of the time. It's just like you can have a scheme with five colors, or it's six colors, or two colors, or one color, or whatever. Just as long as it looks good, it counts as good color theory. So keep that up. Thanks a million for submitting. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We'll move up to Mark Tan here with Sloppity Bile Piper. Tried to put
What
something
a name.
interesting everywhere in the model. It's such a busy model, so good job doing that. I thought initially it was going to be that other guy with the snail, who's like even worse,
Oh
in terms
yeah.
of just having like loads of random stuff all over him. But I think Sloppity is a bit more kind of manageable. And he also tried to emphasize the relationship between him and the Nurgling. So you'd like any feedback on that? All right, cool. So I said yeah, so the details, like it's great to have them all picked out. Uh, having the two different fabrics on his hat, and he's got that kind of motley feeling, which is sort of how he's meant to be. So there is something to look at, like everywhere on it, and it doesn't really overwhelm the way it could do. I think you've got a good balance of like color saturation and levels, and there's a nice kind of neutrality to a lot of it because like his skin tone, which by the way, his skin tone is really really good. I love this kind of like orange into like pale into red stuff you got going on, but it's all very neutrally tones. And then you've got kind of desaturated green and desaturated purple. So it's not like sometimes you see versions of this model or Nurgle guys where it's just this like riot of colors and it's really hard to look at. But I think this is very nice to look at, despite being all disgusting and gross. Um, the yeah, yeah. So I think you definitely get the impression like that this guy's kind of like playing a song for this Nurgling here. I think it would be better if in like the main view, if you're this is more a photography thing, but if you could see, you've kind of adjusted it so that he's like obviously looking at him and they're looking at each other, but we can't see the Nurgling's eye really. So like you want to show them. If it was like a photograph, you want to show them looking at each other, so you want to be able to see them both. So if the Nurgling was angled a little bit differently, um, and also if the emphasis again like this is if this was like a diorama or whatever, I think if you want to emphasize the relationship between the two characters, you shouldn't have one of them right in the middle and the other one like hanging off the side here. Like that's kind of like more like, oh, he's kind of an afterthought. Whereas if you moved Sloppity off to the side and you have the Nurgling, they're kind of like, there's a space between them is the middle of the piece. That would kind of show us that we're looking at the in between the two models instead of just looking at Sloppity and then looking like somewhere else, if that makes sense. I also thought that it probably isn't super helpful that there's like an extra Nurgling in his staff up here, but I think it's far enough away that it kind of gets out of the way and it's fine. Uh, and it is kind of like in the eye line. You're like, is the Nurgling looking at him or is it looking at the Nurgling in the staff? Is there some sort of love triangle going on? I think we'll never know. These are the mysteries for the ages. But obviously it's telling a story, and I think you're doing a great job. So as you consider it, this is just like a normal like 28 millimeter scale dude on a base. So great job altogether. Oh, and yeah, last thing I thought his bagpipe really looks like it's like a horrible distended like heart or stomach or something, which I thought was really good. Jim, anything to add?
Yeah, that was an amazing point about balancing them on the base. That was a I hadn't noticed that, but yeah, that's a cracking suggestion. That would make it a massive amount of difference. Yeah, it looks really really great. Well done straight away, Mark, for this because yeah, it's a busy piece and there's lots going on. What jumped out though, paint wise, was a bit of separation really between the hand and the bag, primarily, and then as you sort of move around, you get like when you look at the Nurgling, like he's got really really soft transitions, really really soft in his skin, and you can see this massively on the back as well. But then when you look at uh, Bile Pipers, he's got really stark transitions between like his shaded areas, and you get like this islanding effect, which like if it's high skin then it's green, and if it's low skin then it's red. So I think if you could do a little bit more volumetric highlighting across him, so like where you get these like islands on this shoulder, for example, like this wouldn't be a shadow here between these two muscles here. It would be a very slightly different shade of green, but then like reserve this red. Like there's a lot of the red, but like reserve that for the deeper parts, like where it goes down by his spine. That looks really really cool. So yeah, just this, I think the flesh looks a lot better when it's softer, and then when you've got like sickly pale skin as well, you can push the highlights further, like what you've done around this wound. That would look better on basically all of the upward facing surfaces of his skin. The Nurgling actually looks better in that respect, I think, skin wise. So yeah, I would push the skin in that way. That would be really cool. I love like the sticky goopy saliva effect that you've got going on. That looks really really nice. So they, yeah, they're great use of the microbeads as well, as a by the way. They do look like they're massively enjoying each other's company. So I think if you've reposed them like to in any way, then that's successful. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so it's great. Like I said before, like picking out all the tiny little details and stuff. I don't know whether you've painted the microbeads, these colours, or whether they've kind of just come out the packet like that. I don't know. But they sort of the colours in this open wound here in his gut feel a little bit off, to be honest. I think it might be the yellow ones. So I think it's because the colours are just in the beads, and then you've got the colour of the intestines is just in the intestines. That might be a purple bead there. Actually, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you could get some of those colours of the beads maybe into the wound somehow, that would kind of help settle it down a little bit. That was just one of the other things, and then the glossiness of the heart as well was another thing. I don't know whether that's painted on or whether that's the effect of like the finish of the paint. So I think it looks really good, but if it was, I think like another like level of gruesome, if you like, as if that is pretty much a fresh organ and it's still a little bit leaky. So like having some fluid like leaking over his hand and maybe like dribbling down onto his knee, like that would be suitably gross. I think maybe on the rock as well, and like he's dancing around in it. Yeah, drip the bloody ooze on me. That'd be great.
Like that.
It's rank, isn't it? Rank. But yeah, he's grim. He's disgusting. He's rank. So yeah, you've done a great job on him. Super stuff. Thank you very much for submitting. And that is all, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks a million for submitting. Quiet month often is during summer. Event for September is already open. We're going to try and get back into our kind of our normal schedule, helping people out, and look forward to seeing any models that people want to submit for review in the future. All the best.